getting the hang of all the different channels, right? Live on 5 different channels: Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, X, Instagram, and Substack. How's everyone doing? We should jump right into it. My name is Celso Garcia, also known as Old Man Labor. How's everyone doing? I'm glad to see you all live and watching what the world is watching as the United States and Iran trade barbs and trade bombs with the United States and Israel with Iran, right? So at this point, we're at day 100, 101, where we continue to bomb each other. Let's listen to Netanyahu addressing the people of Israel.
To prevent a nuclear attack on Israel, I reiterate my commitment. Iran will not have nuclear weapon. The same determination we acted also against Hezbollah. Hezbollah planned to storm into the Galilee and destroy Israeli towns with 150,000 rockets. We also
150,000 rockets,
and we eliminated Nasrallah. And I want to tell you, our brave fighters are destroying Hezbollah.
That's just the way you make me. Get
it's
that
bizarre, right?
feeling this Prime Day, June 23rd through the 26th.
We continue to
Sorry about that.
all military infrastructure along the security zone, including underground terror tunnel complexes. Iran and Hezbollah are weaker than ever, and we are stronger than ever. But our campaign against them is not yet over. Over the past 24 hours, Iran and Hezbollah tried to impose a new equation on us. This equation is unacceptable and also unacceptable to me. If they will launch attacks from Lebanon and Iran on Israel, and that Israel will not respond. This will not happen, not on my shift, as I have done for decades. I am adamant to maintain our right to respond to such attacks. After Hezbollah...
So this is Netanyahu, Israeli president, saying that the whole reason why he attacked Israel, attacked Lebanon, was because Lebanon was going to unleash 200 missiles against Israel. And so it was a defensive attack, right? This is the new strategy. This is the new strategy. This is the same language the United States is using, that whenever they do an attack, they always claim that the attack is defensive. They're trying to protect themselves. That's why I say we have a topsy-turvy type of deal, and the perspective is totally different than what most people's perspective are. Let's listen to what Dropsite has to say about the conflict in Lebanon and Iran and Israel. And I'll also play the words of Donald Trump, how he said he will also retaliate, and the United States around 5 p.m. today also retaliated against Iran for shooting down a U.S. helicopter, right? And so Donald Trump said he's calling the shots still. Israel is not in charge, that he's in charge, right? So let's listen to what they have to say in Drop Site News. And then we're going to go a little bit into local elections, and which are very important, probably more important than foreign wars. Most people want to know what's happening in the world. Today, they're having runoffs in Iran. I'm just joking. They're not having elections in Iran. We're having elections in Maine, where Platner is facing Susan Collins in a very important debate that people are having if they should support Platner, despite his litany of scandals and problems that he has faced. Let's listen to Jeremy Scahill, Ahmad Medea, and Ryan Grimm discuss what's next for Israel and for the United States and Lebanon and all the parties involved.
Who a few weeks ago were expressing concern that Iran was ultimately going to have to negotiate away from a direct linking of these fronts, and that while they might achieve some limited ceasefire as part of the MOU negotiations, that it wasn't going to ultimately be that strong of a red line. Iran did strike Israel in response to the attacks on Beirut. But I'm wondering what your sense is. At the end of the day, the Iranians, the leverage that they have, it does seem like they're going to have to spend or use that leverage to get their own concessions out of Trump. And I know this is a big issue, but just as briefly as you can, what is your sense of what the Lebanese, particularly Hezbollah, what they can expect from the Iranians going forward, and whether or not the Iranians are going to fully go to the mat on making sure this is part of any deal?
So under Ali Khamenei, there was this kind of verbal reassurance, a commitment to Hezbollah, and then we saw that when Israel did attack Lebanon, Iran didn't take direct action. And we've seen a shift in that position from Iran, and explicitly they've gone out and said that any attack on Beirut is going to be considered an attack on Iran, and we're going to attack Israel. And just an hour ago, we saw the Israeli Security Cabinet apparently pre-approving strikes on Beirut without political decision. So clearly, Israel wants to pull in Iran into that dynamic where Iran has to hit Israel or kind of lose credibility. And every time it hits Israel, it gives an opportunity for Israel to hit Iran. Israel has shown that immediately it wants to hit economic infrastructure in Iran. So this is not a great dynamic for Iran, essentially. If you zoom out, what does Iran actually want in Lebanon? It wants to ensure that its allies are in power, and that they have a proper share of power at the very least. And one of the interesting exchanges I had following the outbreak of the Israeli war on Hezbollah, and this is before the Israeli-US war on Iran, a senior political insider in Tehran told me that we can't have kind of a militia that's stronger than the army forever in that country, referring to Hezbollah. It's not a natural order. And the first thing that hit me when I heard that was, well, you guys discovered this now? After almost 40 years? Surely this must be something that you kept in mind earlier. And if you zoom out even more, you look at elsewhere in the region. For instance,
and there's a lot of destabilization, right? So there's a resistance, and then there's a government, then there's a quasi-government that's resisting, and they just at peace with each other for the sake of the people. And then, but then the United States and Israel is trying to destabilize these countries, because if they destabilize these countries, then they become stronger. They have a stronger hand to deal with diplomatically, or deal with these countries, or economically. So they will have to depend on the United States to provide whatever they need. So they're trying to resist as much as they can, so they don't have to depend on the United States. They don't want that at all. They want to stay autonomous or sovereign nations, and they don't want to have to depend on the superpower. And so we're going to talk about all these topics, including why everyone's mad at Zohran, the illusion of the dangerous left, Platner in Maine, Nithya Raman, and LA mayor's race, right? And I was going to throw in there all the races across the country and the governor's race in California, which the governor's race in California, Hilton and Becerra are passing on to the next round, to the runoff. Um, and a lot of people were disappointed. Some people are happy, but we shall see uh, who prevails in that race. And also, Nithya Raman and Karen Bass seem to be the ones that are moving on. So uh, that's going to be an interesting race also. And in New York, as you know, we have a whole bunch of races across the country. So very important. I mean, across the state, and we also have a very important races across the country. Lindsey Graham is up for re-election, and it seems like some people are saying that he's not doing that well in the polls. He's not that popular. A lot of people are already tired of the way the state is being run and the way the political entities are trying to control the people. They're trying to control the people's ability to vote or ability to participate in the democracy, right? So it looks like this high turnout in both elections. I mean, not both elections, but many elections across the country. Let's listen to what they got to say about Lebanon and Iran, and then we'll move on from after this.
Since Iran's allies in Iraq within the popular mobilization units, there's a big debate in Iraq right now about the integration of these militias into the state. And what does this actually mean? Does this mean dissolving these militias, Iran's allies deciding to self-implode? No, I think it's not about that. It's about they become the state. It's less militia versus the state. It's more that the militia capture of the state or becoming the state. And I think if you have the process in Iraq, but these militia groups now actually are funded by the Iraqi government to the tune of almost $3 billion a year, and they enter fully the military and become integrated units in it, then they basically control the army of Iraq. If you manage to come up with a formula in Lebanon, where there's I think something like that in Lebanon is far down the line. I'm not saying that it's on the agenda right now. But if to look at the future of how you're going to deal with integration into the national security forces of Lebanon, and if you look at substantive issues that, okay, if the Israeli forces under any kind of deal agree to end their occupation of Lebanese territory, they decide to pull back. Keep in mind, Israel and Hezbollah have made deals in recent years. On the Biden administration, there was a deal between Israel and Lebanon about their maritime boundary. It was demarcated. Nothing like that would be able to take place without the explicit blessing of Hezbollah. And at the time, the IRGC media in Iran was hailing that. So there's precedent, not just in the distant past, but in recent years about Hezbollah and IRGC being able to make deals with Israel. If Israeli occupation forces leave Lebanon, if there's a deal between, for instance, Israel and Lebanon on border demarcation, and if you have a situation where Hezbollah can continue to conduct its operation, possibly down the line as an element of the armed forces of Lebanon, that's definitely something that can work out. This is kind of long-term game that Iran is looking at, because again, you have to ask yourself, what are they wanting core interest in Lebanon? Like any other country, like any other government, he wants its friends to do well. He wants its friends to be in power. Simple as that. It's not very complicated. So I think at its core, if you look at things like that, there's definitely a deal to be had. But getting to that point, especially when you're dealing with Israel, which is an actor which has zero interest in an Iran-US understanding, it gets a lot more complicated.
They don't want them to reach a deal because if they reach a deal, then they get cut out. Then they no longer have leverage over other countries. But I don't think Donald Trump wants a war, because if the longer the war continues, the more pain they're gonna suffer. The more pain there's gonna be, right? And every time you spend money on one thing, this is Clay Valdez running in Brooklyn. Good candidate, running for Congress in Brooklyn.
Healthcare is a huge thing.
57.
You had to deal with it in Albany, and you'd have to deal with it, of course, in Washington. How
I'm
do you
mixing
do that?
things up.
You know, we have to fight for Medicare for all. And I think everyone who's watching this right now has a story either from their own lives or from someone else in their lives, you know, where a tooth filling falling out or stepping off a curb or an unexpected diagnosis almost derailed their entire lives or put them into deep medical debt. And it's completely unjust. Again, one of the wealthiest countries in the world, medical debt should not be an issue that anyone deals with. So we need to fight for Medicare for all. So no matter what your immigration status is, your employment status is, you have the healthcare that you deserve. I think it is a matter of political will. And what we've seen is that the medical or the health insurance industry pours so much money into lobbying Congress. And it's been a real roadblock in advancing something like universal health care, Medicare for all at the federal level. And what we have to do is elect people who don't take that money, won't.
Same thing with war, right? It's all about money. Somebody's getting rich off of it. Somebody's getting rich off the wars. Somebody's getting rich off of all this money that's being made in the lobbying and in the manufacturing of weapons across different parts of the country, right? Everyone hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the share button. Let's talk about the major issues. And so if you're in Queens, you should turn out for Claire Valdez. There's other candidates. I'm gonna preview them slowly but surely. I'm gonna preview them, okay? So remember, for every bomb we drop on another country, another path of destruction we take, the more money it costs us. That money could be used for, I'm tired, I guess. So that money could be used for other resources in the community, for healthcare, for food, for helping the elderly, the poor, the sick live better lives. But us dropping all types of weapons and ammunition on the foreign country, it's just gonna make the war more expensive. And it's gonna make people hate us across the world, right? And while we don't even have health care, we're being destroyed by those powers to be in the world, right? We've been destroyed so bad, and the only thing we could do is sit back and watch. No, we could do more. We don't have to just sit down and watch us back and just take it easy. No, obviously, we got to push back against those people that don't want to be pushed back against, right? And there's a whole bunch of people like that. And this is her opponent. Let me play. That's Claire Valdez. This is her opponent, running a whole bunch of establishment Democrats on his ticket to try to help him. Antonio Reynoso, right? So let's see. This is her competitor spending big money against her, a lot of money. right? So
Neither does Antonio. Led the Progressive Caucus. Kicked ICE off Rikers.
It's not taking a cent from wealthy special interests.
He's by our side.
For all these fights.
Because Trump and his crew don't stop. Neither does Antonio. Led the Progressive Caucus. Kicked ICE off Rikers. They underestimated me. Attacked me.
Stiff-armed me.
And Antonio Reynoso was by our side.
For all these fights.
Because Trump and his crew don't stop. Neither does Antonio. Led the Progressive Caucus. Kicked ICE off Rikers.
It's not taking a cent from wealthy special interests.
He's the best choice to deliver change.
And fight back.
Because he's done it over and over.
That's why teachers,
I don't know about
nurses,
that.
The Working Families Party.
We're all on his side.
because he's on ours. They underestimated me. Attacked me.
Stiff-armed me.
And Antonio Reynoso was by our side.
For all these fights.
Because Trump and his crew don't stop. Neither does Antonio. Led the Progressive Caucus. Kicked ICE off Rikers.
It's not taking a cent from wealthy special interests.
He's the best choice to deliver change.
And fight back.
Because he's done it over and over.
That's why teachers, nurses,
The Working Families Party.
We're all on his side.
because he's on ours.
So kind of vanilla ad, right? Kind of vanilla, costs a lot of money, and this is the best they could do. Sad, but true. Sad, but definitely true. They could have used that money more efficiently on better things than an ad that doesn't really benefit the community. Right? And let's see what they got to say about Zohran. Right? Zohran is being attacked by Knicks fans, and because he set up a perimeter around Madison Square Garden, but it was the requirements of Secret Service, right? Secret Service required it. It's not like he automatically requested that this take place, right? Secret Service, Donald Trump showed up. Right? Donald Trump showed up. So what are we gonna do? We gotta comply. And so let's see. So the war is on again. Right? The war is on again. Let's see. I'll cover Zohran right now. Let's talk a little bit more about the war. So let's see. Okay, let me see. All right. Let me cancel this. So there's a lot of things happening in our local neighborhoods too, in our local elected races, because we got to get rid of the establishment. We got to get rid of those people that have been there for 40 years, 30 years, 20 years. We need fresh voices, fresh ideas, fresh way to do things for the young in the community, right? So give me 1 second. Let me pull this up. So I wanted to talk about Zohran a little bit, but let's check on Platner. Let's check on the Platner race. And then I'll get to Zohran. I just want to see the update, how he's doing, right? Okay, so this is Graham Platner. His victory remarks. I believe he was declared the winner. Yeah, so he was declared the nominee for the Democratic Party for the Maine election. It was a whopping. It was so Graham Platner won in Maine. He gave his victory speech from headquarters.
With, and that I continue to learn from. And I'm still far from perfect. But redemption is not just some simple or easy destination. It's a journey. I've made mistakes in my life, mistakes that I regret, that I live with, and that I continue to learn from. And I'm still far from perfect. But every day I wake up and I try to be a little bit better and a little bit kinder than I was the day before. And if you give me the chance, I will be a senator for the people who cannot afford to buy a senator. I will stand up for you and against billionaires and greedy corporations.
That's what they don't like about him. That's why
I will
so much
serve
money
you,
against
the
him.
people of Maine, not some lobbyist or party boss. I will be the champion for your dreams as if it were my own, no matter the challenge or the expense. I will fight for you. I have been willing to die for my country. There is nothing that I will not do for the state of Maine.
Yeah, he spoke the truth, right? Hopefully he keeps his promise. Like I say, I don't always want to trust the politicians. They make a lot of promises, and a lot of times they don't deliver on their promises, right? Like look at Donald Trump. Donald Trump made so many promises, and he didn't keep any of them. That's the problem. How do we trust people with our neighborhood, with the soul of our neighbors, the soul of our children, and trust them? Trust them for 4 years, right? Interesting. All right, let's watch this one now. Especially Zohran. I'm still gonna get back to Zohran. Don't worry.
In a home.
Right. Okay, let's see. Let's see how CNN covered it.
He was saying that they're talking about she voted for a war that he was in, but I think this is still about Graham Platner. And he started to pivot. The question is, can he successfully pivot? I think, perhaps the most important line and the biggest question for the next 5 months, do Maine voters trust him? And he said, to all those who feel let down, disappointed, or disillusioned, it's my job to earn your trust. So that is, I think, the challenge for him, to earn the trust as Republican ads start pummeling him about his character and things. So if there's no shoe to drop, perhaps this moves on, but that's an open question for one. But for two, I think the challenge is still making this about Susan Collins. And yes, he's doing it in this speech here, but this is the easiest night of the rest of the campaign for him. It gets much harder come morning.
Yeah, I mean, Susan Collins has obviously been a political powerhouse in Maine, as Jeff noted earlier, you know, how she's prevailed in these races before. When you listen to that, Congressman, as someone who is obviously endorsed him, he's going after Susan Collins. You mentioned the Epstein files, and obviously that's been something that you've led the charge on here in Washington. He said that she's never met a war she didn't like. I mean, do you think those are going to be effective attacks come this November?
Susan Collins is
it's saying, oh, Susan Collins.
formidable, but Graham has had a terrific night. When it looks like he's going to be near 75% of the vote, that's a big thing. And his speech showed both humility and strength. He talked about Maine giving him grace, Maine giving him a second chance. He talked about the need to earn people's votes. So this was not an arrogant speech. He understands he needs to do work, and he understands they're giving him a chance at redemption. And yet he was strong. He said, I'm going to tax the billionaires. I'm not going to have these foreign wars. I'm going to take on the corporate interests and PAC money. I'm going to call for the release of the Epstein files. We have not had a candidate with that kind of clarity and strength run against Collins.
Perhaps clarity, but not moral clarity. He talked about grace. He had several different lines about grace. What about the grace for the women who made serious allegations against him, reported in the New York Times? He talked about Susan Collins being corrupt. He talked about Susan Collins voting to give funding to ICE, taking our neighbors and putting them in unmarked vans. So now he's a warrior for minorities, the same guy with a Nazi tattoo, and he didn't know it was a Nazi tattoo, or the only people I know who get Nazi tattoos on their chest are actual Nazis. This is going to be an election about character. Now, the voters in Maine may not like every single thing about Susan Collins, but Susan Collins is a woman who broke a lot of history, who does have bipartisan support, who has not always voted with her party. She's not a person who supports women merely when it's convenient for her, as we're seeing with Graham Platner, who I thought it was very ironic that he was surrounded by a ton of women in the midst of giving this campaign speech. This will come down to someone they know versus a guy who uses and says whatever he has to say to get his way, and I don't think it's going to work.
We will see what happens. Obviously, it's going to be an ugly campaign between the two of them.
Let's keep watching. Sorry. Rolls up a little bit. But Graham Platner is on the roll. Cutting him a lot of slack. But when it comes to Zohran, no one wants to cut him slack. Everything he does is bad or out of whack. But the people are with him, right? They like a lot of the stuff that he's doing. So all these other people, all these other politicians need to step up or move to the side, right? Step up or move. All right. Let's see. So Platner wins. And then, meanwhile, we got other people not trying to get peace or make peace with anyone. They just straight up are doing whatever they want, right?
Task Force 59 in Bahrain. The drone's Texas made. It's 24 feet long and can travel 1,000 miles and hit speeds of 35 knots. And it's the first sea drone rescue in combat history. Trump was on the phone with the press when he gave the order. POTUS said this is a retaliation for the helicopter hit, and it's important that our response is strong and powerful. CENTCOM called our response proportional, but sources say we're taking out Iranian air defenses, radar systems all along the strait, and we're not finished. Technically, I know it doesn't seem like it, but we're still in a ceasefire. And the president continues to say, we're close to a deal.
We're in the final throes of what will be a very, very good deal that will not allow in any way, shape, or form nuclear weapons, etc. And the strait will open up right away. It'll open up immediately upon signing, which could be in 2 or 3 days.
Trump's made the terms clear. The uranium must be turned over and destroyed. Enrichment must stop for 2 decades, at least. All nuclear sites must be completely dismantled, and the United States is able to conduct snap inspections whenever the heck we want. The strait would open immediately. And in fact, the energy secretary says traffic's up. JP Morgan estimates 2 million barrels are getting out a day. The U.S. Navy's finessing tankers through. And the price of crude's almost back down into the 80s. So once the gay Ayatollah signs on the dotted line, war's over, whether Israel likes it or not. Trump had another talk with Netanyahu. No F-bombs this time.
I said, do what's right, but I want you to stop as quickly as you can, because they have to stop. It's had to do with Lebanon, and it has to stop. We want to get it finished.
They keep going. He's upset. He's angry. The way they covered the story. All right. He's angry the way they covered the story. All right. Okay. Let's move on. The war is the war. I don't see it anytime soon. When will Trump be held accountable and have to answer to Congress, have to answer questions from the free press? It's going to be a long line, but we'll enjoy it and watch it. All right. Let's see. You can sit down and watch it. Debate all night. What can we do, right? There's like at least 4 more candidates I would like to highlight. Say about this, kind of trying to raise against the younger generation, trying to raise watch. Pit one group against the other. Right? By the way, Platner smoked the other candidate really bad. I'm talking about smoked them. There's going to be a lot of interesting races. And exactly that's what I like. A candidate that doesn't take all these gifts and receipts and trying to get themselves added. So let's see. Why they mad? Why they upset with Zohran? I don't understand what he did to them.
Day, the U.S. Navy's finessing tankers through. And the price of crude's almost back down into the 80s. So once the gay Ayatollah signs on the dotted line, war's over, whether Israel likes it or not. Trump had another talk with Netanyahu. No F-bombs this time.
I said, do what's right, but I want you to stop as quickly as you can, because they have to stop. It's had to do with Lebanon, and it has to stop. We want to get it finished.
Can we trust him? Can you trust Trump, people? Whatever he tells you is the right thing. He was talking about he wanted to not for Israel not to retaliate, and then now the United States is retaliating back. They're going tit for tat with Israel, which is bad, right? Helping them. It's too much for most people. This is the guy, not a good candidate. Why did he take so much money from
at the federal level, and that money should be taken out of politics at the federal level.
Obviously, AIPAC, their brand has become completely toxic in the Democratic primary electorate. So I just want to ask you directly, would you reject AIPAC spending on your behalf?
I think the most important thing with regards to campaign funding is that we must reform campaign financing at the federal level, and that money should be taken out of politics at the federal level.
Obviously, AIPAC, their brand has become completely toxic in the Democratic primary electorate. So I just want to ask you directly, would you reject AIPAC spending on your behalf?
I think the most important thing with regards to campaign funding is that we must reform campaign financing at the federal level, and that money should be taken out of politics at the federal level.
Obviously, AIPAC, their brand has become completely toxic in the Democratic primary electorate. So I just want to ask you directly, would you reject AIPAC spending on your behalf?
I think the most important thing with regards to campaign funding is that we must reform campaign financing at the federal level, and that money should be taken.
Except for him, he doesn't have to follow those same rules that he's proposing, right? Holding it up. Holding it up, people. And the Knicks game was wonderful. There's a lot of people that came for the first time. They were watching in the standing room only area with Zohran Diamond. So when people say he's a sellout, he's not. He's just working real hard, and he doesn't have time to answer people like he used to. So that's that. That's that up there. So, what got Zohran upset? Who got Zohran upset? The constant attacks on the way he does things. Right? They're always attacking everything he does. They don't give him any room to breathe, right? And so they had to ask AOC, right?
Stomach, in some
Of
of
all
it.
candidates.
But
Let's hear what she has to say.
at the end of the day, I think that this is a choice. If the choice on the ballot is between that and a senator who's voted to take health care away from millions of Americans, that's the situation that we have to weigh.
Wow.
Obviously, there's a lot in that behavior that's really challenging. It's hard to stomach, in some of it. But at the end of the day, I think that this is a choice. If the choice on the ballot is between that and a senator who's voted to take health care away from millions of Americans, that's the situation that we have to weigh.
Critical,
Obviously,
right?
there's a lot
of thinking. It's hard to leave exemplary lives, not cause problems, definitely not cause problems. So she wants to take a more passing things. Okay, hold on. Sorry, everyone's freezing. But she's yeah. And then what do? What does Congress do? It passes a $70 million bill to fund immigration enforcement. $70 billion on top of the $80 billion they got last year. That's a huge sum. That could pay a lot of people's debt, right? U.S. launched a strike on Iran, right? Oh yeah, I was gonna cover Zohran, right? President Trump blamed Iran for shooting down a helicopter, and on social media, Iran's foreign minister said foreign forces in approximately, and so the U.S. strikes are expected, right? Mass chaos across the border in Europe, in the Middle East, Africa. Right? And then, and all they got to do is attack Zohran. They've got nothing better to do in journalism. And there's so much happening in the world. Right? So much is happening in the world. And so we need to wake up, pay attention, and do what we got to do to get those people out of power. The ones that don't represent the people or feel like no one's going to notice that they represent big lobbying firms. Right? It's sad to see. Any campaign could get infiltrated by outsiders and co-opted. So let's watch what Zohran had to say. Right? All right, hold on. So he says, we're back outside the garden. We have approved the ticketed MSG watch party for Game 4. More details are soon. As we prepare to watch together, let me clear this is a historic, joyful moment for our city. We will not allow it to be disrupted by violence. Be safe, take care, and celebrate responsibly. And then he said, couldn't agree more. Right? Let me show you his tweets. And let me show you Zohran's tweets. People were angry with him about his canceling the watch parties. They said he was selling out. So we're back. He said, couldn't agree more. We will win the series in the court, even if the refs refuse to call a flagrant Wemby, not by targeting, harassing, or attacking Spurs fans. Wow. It's way into this, right? So hopefully I'll see him out there. He got a lot of people angry by canceling the watch party last time because Donald Trump decided he wants to show up. And so everything has to be changed back to the way he likes it. Yeah. Yeah. See you later. Screen just froze. So the watch parties are back on for Knicks fans. Watch parties are back on. All right. So I'll see you out there, Madison Square Garden, outside. Don't be rowdy. Don't be causing problems. I'll see you out there with our first Democratic Socialist mayor, Zohran. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night. See you soon. Have a good night, everyone. See you soon. I'll be streaming tomorrow every day. Took a few days off. I'm back at it. Thanks for joining me. All right. Good night, everyone.